Think about the last time you were unsure about something, a decision you could not quite make, a feeling you could not quite trust. You turned it over in your head for days. You looked at it from every angle, and nothing moved. Then someone else said it out loud. A friend, a coworker, maybe a stranger in a comment section. They said the exact thing you had already been thinking. And suddenly, you believed it. Notice how strange that is. Nothing actually changed. The idea was the same idea. The facts were the same facts. The only thing that was different was whose mouth it came out of. So here is the question I want to sit with you for the next few minutes. Why do you trust a stranger's version of the truth more than your own? Think about how little sense that should make. You are with yourself every second of every day. You have watched yourself handle hard things. You have more information about you than any person alive will ever have. You know your reasons, your history, the whole story behind every choice. And still, somehow, their opinion lands harder than yours does. You felt this everywhere, even if you never named it. You read your own work and it feels flat, but a friend reads it and calls it good, and only then do you let yourself believe it. You pick a paint color, you are happy with it, then someone raises an eyebrow and the whole thing feels wrong. You make a plan you are sure about, until one person asks, "Are you sure?" and the certainty just drains out of you. Here's what I want you to understand by the end of this. That feeling is not a flaw in your confidence. It is not weakness. It is not you being broken. It is something much more specific than that and much more fixable. There is a real mechanism running underneath it, and once you can see how it works, you genuinely cannot unsee it. So let's take it apart, one piece at a time. Insider and outsider. Here is the first piece, and it's the one almost nobody notices they're doing. You see other people from the outside, but you see yourself from the inside, and those two views are not even close to the same thing. When you look at someone else, you only ever get the finished version. You get the calm voice in the meeting, the clean decision, the photo they posted after they took 40 and deleted 39. You get the result, polished and handed to you, with all the mess already cut out. What you never see is the rest of it. You never see the 40 bad drafts. You never see them sitting in their car before they walked in, trying to slow their breathing. You never see them lying awake at 2 in the morning, completely certain they got it all wrong. That part is invisible to you. It always has been. So your brain does something quiet and automatic. It fills in the gap. It takes the calm surface and assumes the calm goes all the way down. It assumes they feel as steady as they look. But with yourself, you do not get the highlight reel. You get everything. You get every doubt, every half-formed thought, every ugly first attempt, every time you changed your mind. You are watching the raw, uncut footage of your own mind all day long with no editing and no soundtrack. You see the seams. You see the work. You see how the sausage gets made, because you are the one making it. So think about what you are actually doing when you compare yourself to other people. You are taking their best, most finished moment and setting it next to your messiest, most unfinished one. You are putting their highlight reel right up against your behind the scenes. And then you wonder why you come up short. Of course you do. You stacked the deck against yourself without even realizing the game had started. It was never a fair comparison, not once. You just never noticed you were making it. Every single time you have felt like everyone else has it figured out and you are the only one faking it. This is what was happening. You were comparing two things that were never the same kind of thing. Signal and noise. Now here is the part that goes deeper. Because the comparison problem is real, But underneath it, there's a second mechanism, and this one is built right into how your brain works. This is the engine. Your brain is designed to notice what is new. New information feels urgent, important, worth your attention. And familiar information does the opposite. It fades. It sinks into the background until you stop noticing it is there at all. You have felt this with sound. Think about a fan running in the room, traffic outside your window, the hum of a fridge. When it first starts, you hear it. But after a few minutes, it is gone. Not actually gone. The sound is still there, the same volume it always was. Your brain just decided it is not worth the attention anymore and quietly turned it down. Scientists have a name for this. They call it the difference between signal and noise. Signal is the thing worth listening to. Noise is the stuff you filter out so you can function. Your brain is sorting the entire world into those two piles every second without asking you. And here is the problem. Your own voice got sorted into the noise pile. Think about it. You have heard your own thoughts your entire life. Every opinion you hold, you have heard yourself think 1,000 times. Every doubt, every preference, every instinct, you have lived inside that voice since before you could speak. So your brain does exactly what it does with the fan and the traffic. It marks it as familiar, as background, as noise to tune out. But a stranger's opinion? That is brand new. It arrives from outside your head. You have never heard it before. So your brain lights up and marks it as signal, as fresh data, as something that might matter. That is the trick. That is the whole thing right there. It is not that their judgment is sharper than yours. It is not that they know more. It is that your own judgment sounds like a fan running in the background, and theirs sounds like breaking news. So sit with what that actually means. When you trust a stranger over yourself, you are not responding to how right they are. You are responding to how new they are. You are mistaking novelty for accuracy. You are treating "I have not heard this before" as if it meant this must be true. You are not trusting them because they are right. You are trusting them because they are new. And those two things have nothing to do with each other. Where it comes from. Now you might be wondering, if this is so backwards, why would my brain ever build it this way? And the answer is that it was not backwards, not at first. It made perfect sense when it started. You were not born doing this, you learned it. Go back to when you were very small. Back then, the people around you genuinely did know more than you did. They knew which things were dangerous. They knew what was food and what was not. They knew whether the dog was friendly or whether you should back away. So you learned to do something smart. When you were not sure if something was safe, you looked up. You looked at an adult's face to find the answer. If they were calm, you stayed calm. If their face went tense, you knew to be afraid, even before you understood why. Researchers have actually watched babies do this. A baby will pause at the edge of something uncertain and look straight at their parent's face to decide what to feel. Looking outside yourself for the answer kept you alive. It was not a weakness. It was one of the smartest things you ever did. Borrowing someone else's judgment when you did not have your own yet, that was the right call. But here is what happened. You never switched it off. The years went by. You grew up. You gathered your own experience. You made thousands of decisions and lived through the results. You actually know things now, real things, hard-won things. You are not that small child scanning a parent's face anymore. But your brain did not get the memo. It is still running the old program, still scanning the room, still waiting for someone else's expression to tell you whether you are okay, still reaching for an outside answer before it checks whether you already have one. The habit did not break when you grew up. That is the thing nobody tells you. It just got quieter. It went underground. And because it got quiet, you stopped noticing it was running at all. So now it feels like just how you are. Like part of your personality. When really it is a survival tool that was supposed to be temporary and just never got put away.
What it costs you.
Now I want to slow down, because this is the part that actually matters. It would be one thing if this habit were harmless, a quirk, something to laugh about. But it is not harmless. It costs you, quietly, every single day, and most people never add up the bill. Here is the first cost. Every time you hand your judgment to someone else, you lose a little practice at making your own. Trusting yourself works like a muscle. It is a skill, not a personality trait, and skills only grow when you use them. Every time you actually back your own read on a situation, that muscle gets a little stronger. But every time you wait for someone else to confirm what you already knew, you skip the rep. You sit it out, and the muscle stays exactly as weak as it was. So you end up trapped in a loop. You do not trust yourself, so you outsource the decision. But because you outsourced it, you never build the trust. And because you never build the trust, next time you outsource it again. Round and round. You stay weak in the exact place you most wish you were strong. And the staying weak feels like proof that you were right not to trust yourself. It feeds itself. And there is a second cost, a quieter one. And honestly, this is the one that hurts more. When you only let yourself believe something after a stranger says it, you start living one full step behind your own life. You already knew. You had the answer on day one. You just did not move on it because you were waiting for permission. And permission almost always arrives late. Think about the times this has actually happened to you. The decision you sat on for a month that you somehow knew the answer to in the first week. The job you should have left, the conversation you should have had, the idea you should have started. You did not lack the answer. You had the answer the whole time. What you lacked was the trust to act on it without a second opinion. So you waited, and while you waited, the moment moved. The opportunity cooled. Someone else started the thing. And when you finally did move, it was slower and later, and it cost more than it would have if you had just trusted the voice you had on day one. That is the real price here. It is not that you make bad decisions. People who doubt themselves often make very good decisions, carefully, eventually. The price is that you make them slowly. You spend your life a half step behind a version of you that already knew where to go.
The turn.
So what do you actually do with all of this? Because I do not want to just hand you a problem and walk away. The first thing is to let go of the obvious fix, because the obvious fix does not work. You do not solve this by trying harder to feel confident. You have probably already tried that. Telling yourself to just be more sure, just trust your gut, just believe in yourself. And it slides right off. Because confidence was never the real problem. The miscalibration is. Your instrument for reading yourself is set wrong. No amount of trying to feel something fixes a measurement error. Here is the actual shift. It is small and it changes everything. Start treating your own voice as data again. Not as noise to filter out, as real information worth reading, the same way you would read anyone else's. And here is a clue for finding the signal in your own head. Pay attention to the thought that keeps coming back. The quiet idea that will not leave you alone, no matter how many times you set it down. That repetition is not you being annoying or indecisive. It is a signal. The thought that returns is often the one that knows something you have not admitted yet. Your mind keeps handing it back to you because it matters. Now let me give you something you can actually use. Something for the exact moment this happens. Next time you catch yourself waiting for someone else to confirm what you already think, stop and ask yourself one question. What would I believe right now if I had heard this exact thing from someone I trusted? That is it. Same words, same idea. You are just picking the thought up out of the noise pile and moving it over to the signal pile on purpose. You are forcing your brain to weigh the content of the thought instead of the source of it. And watch what happens when you do that. Most of the time, the thought holds up. It was a good read all along. It only sounded weak because it was coming from the one voice your brain was trained to ignore. This is not a trick to feel better about yourself. I want to be clear about that. It is not a confidence affirmation. It is something more honest than that. You are recalibrating the instrument. You are turning your own judgment back up to full volume so you can finally hear it at the same level you hear everyone else. Because you do not actually need a louder opinion. You do not need more information. You already have it. You just need to stop tuning out the one voice that has been in the room the whole time.
The landing.
So let us come all the way back to where we started. That feeling, the one where a stranger somehow seems to know you better than you know yourself, where someone else's offhand opinion outweighs everything you have thought about for weeks. Now you can finally see it for what it really is. It was never proof that they are right and you are wrong. It was never a sign that your judgment is broken. It was just your brain doing an old, familiar job. The same job it has been doing since before you can remember. Treating the familiar as noise. Treating the new as truth. Quietly comparing everyone else's polished highlight reel to your own unedited footage and deciding, without ever telling you, that you must have come up short. But you were never short. You were just listening to everyone in the room, except the one person who has actually been there for all of it. So here is where I will leave you. The voice you keep tuning out, the one that sounds like background noise, the one you keep waiting for someone else to confirm, that voice is not noise. It is the single most informed voice you will ever have access to. It has been with you through every moment of your life. It knows the whole story, the parts nobody else ever saw. It has every reason to be trusted. You have spent a long time treating it like a stranger. Maybe it is time you finally started listening to it, like it was the newest, most important thing you had heard all day. Because it might just be.